Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Eden of Light Cycle Astrology, and today we are doing Mantic Monday episode 36, where we're taking a look at what I think is going to shape up to be the most prominent astrological sequence coming in the week ahead for us. Namely, that this week is featuring a Venus-Jupiter conjunction, something that is probably one of the best aspects that you can have in astrology. So as far as 2024 is concerned, this week promises to deliver hopefully some pretty good things for a lot of us, whether that is ranging from small things that are really appreciated and needed in terms of support or help or luck or beneficial things coming our way, or maybe even for some bigger things that are really giant blessings, so to speak. So we'll get into the archetypal narratives to watch for this week in terms of Venus making a conjunction or adherence to the planet Jupiter. We'll take a look at the timing of this, and then we'll get into 4 narratives that I've picked out to give examples of how you could see these archetypal pairings in terms of an archetypal combination come together in the sky and maybe reflect some kind of delineation that may be showing up for us this week. You'll have to excuse me. I got a bug and became sick from our daughter, who is had kind of a bad cold last week, and so I'm a little bit stuffy and groggy. But this is such a big part of 2024's astrology, so I didn't want to miss this week. But anyway, just excuse the frog voice here today. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit notifications so you don't miss any videos. Leave some comments in the comment section, and you can always find me at lightcycleastrology.com if you want to get a reading from me. All right, well, let's go ahead and pull up the real-time clock, and let's just run through the timing of this adherence or conjunction between Venus and Jupiter. So this is going to be coming through for us. It starts on Monday here, where you see that Venus and Jupiter are now within 3 degrees of each other. So that's really what could be considered the beginning of the archetypal narratives of Venus and Jupiter coming together in the sky, sort of maybe becoming apparent around us, or we start to notice the archetypal narratives around this time. Now, as we roll forward, though, by time, we see that on Thursday is when the 2 planets actually meet up in the sky, and Venus is going to, of course, pass over Jupiter, being the faster planet. But there is a whole sequence of things that I want to spend just a few minutes going over with you, because this is a really fascinating conjunction. This isn't an isolated event where we just have Venus and Jupiter coming together, and it would be nice if it was that simple. But honestly, there are a few details here that are really fascinating. And if you guys have any ideas about how you would interpret a few of these things sort of happening in sequence, I'd love to hear about them in the comments. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around how you sort of tie all of these things together. And sometimes in astrology, you don't want to try to tie too many things together, because it just becomes like paralysis by analysis. You know, you just can't do it. And generally, when you try, you end up making things way more complicated, and you try to hit some bullseye target that ends up being totally not what the thing is actually going to be about. But that as an aside, it's still fun to try to get a little bit close to maybe what something is indicating here. And so in the spirit of that, so watch this. So we have on Thursday, this is perfecting. And then here's the sequence of events. If I go forward by hours now, check this out. Venus will pass over Jupiter. And actually, let me just go back. And as this is happening, look at the moon down here at the last degree of Scorpio here. The moon in Scorpio is making an opposition to the exact moment that Venus and Jupiter conjoin in the sky. That's really a powerful thing. Normally, you might not pay attention to that, although you could. But because the moon is basically in the full moon lunation phase during this moment, I think that that is giving us a more of an indicator of the meaning of this whole conjunction, because it's opposing these two planets when it's in such a powerful lunation phase. And as Venus passes over Jupiter, the moon actually moves into the sign where it will culminate or become, officially in the full moon phase, and immediately go through a perfected opposition to the sun, which of course is what happens on a full moon, right? We're getting the full light of the sun being reflected on the moon at this time. And then hours after the full moon perfects and begins to tilt towards what is known in ancient astrology as the flowing fourth stage, where the aspect has reached its exact angle and then is beginning to move out of that angle, but is still close enough that it's like the fruit is very, very ripe on the tree and it's heavy, and the fruit can fall from the tree at that point. So it's kind of like a metaphor for potential events or circumstances that will carry that symbolic that symbolism around it to appear around us in our lives in some form or fashion, right? So in other words, you're getting a very powerful moment here that is tying into the Jupiter-Venus conjunction, and then directly after the perfection of the full moon, but while the moon is still very much in this full moon energy, Venus will enter the sign of the opposite to the full moon here in Gemini. So Venus enters Gemini, becomes really close to the sun by this point, within almost 3 degrees itself to the sun. So the sun, now Venus is really close to the sun outside of its domicile, and is kind of in opposition to the full moon. So this whole sequence of events is interesting. Let's boil it down to just a few things here. Let's say this: Venus and Jupiter are known as the two benefic planets, meaning they tend to represent things that we would want to have happen, or things that we would consider lucky or fortunate, or like good blessings. Love is a blessing, obviously. Coming into money is a blessing, but they're, all of the things that we would appreciate coming our way, or like some stroke of good fortune. Venus and Jupiter tend to represent those things in that realm. So when you have those two planets representing both good fortune coming together in a conjunction, it speaks to beginnings. It speaks to things being fertilized or conceived of. It speaks to new cycles that are beginning, that will play themselves out. But there is this real beginning kind of energy. Now, what's fascinating about that is that energy happening so close to the end of a sign, where as planets move from one sign to another, that is a symbolic message that things are changing, right? They're in one place, but they're going into another place. So you have something that is beginning, something that is most likely surrounding some kind of support or beneficial thing or lucky circumstance, or something that we would want, something maybe pertaining to love or desire or success or something along those lines. So you have all of those things combined with something beginning, but something that begins and is immediately upon a change from one thing to another, or something like that. And then the full moon, which is a culmination, like a moment of ripeness, something that has reached its picking stage, where it's a ripe fruit that you can pick and then eat. It's something that could be harvested. It's something that has come to a successful completion, something that is done and may be presented to the world, right? A full moon, very luminous, very bright, very visible. So you have all of this mixture of symbolism happening. around this Venus-Jupiter conjunction, which I just think is really, really fascinating. So again, if you guys have any ideas about how you might interpret all of these things put together, I'd love to hear them. But some of the narratives that I came up for, trying to keep it simple, but also trying to include some of these details, are in no particular order. Let's just call it number one. Fertility drives a change, a shift, a break, somewhere, something that is changing, shifting, breaking out in some area of our lives, that is being driven by something very fertile, very fecundant, almost like it could be like sexual energy that is used for creativity or for a passion or a desire that is driving something to sort of change into something new. You just get those kind of narratives. And, that's what I was just saying a moment ago. Kind of those kinds of things are coming up because of all of these different indicators. An example, though, just a really simple example. I made a new friend who is into health and fitness, who will inspire a healthy lifestyle. This is a personal example where I just met somebody in a store the other day, and I just kind of like hit it off with this person, and we were, just talking for a moment. But he gave me his card, and he was like, cool, call me. We'll hang out. And when I got home, I looked at the card, and it was like a fitness or like a wellness, and he's like a wellness and fitness coach. And I thought, well, that's really cool, because you meet somebody, and it doesn't have anything to do with fitness or health in this particular example, but I've met somebody that may support something positive in my life, that Venus Jupiter coming together. It has that newness to it. Maybe it's, this is a new friend that I might start hanging out with. And then because he is into these things, it leads to a positive change in my life. It's just an example, but it gives you kind of a little bit of an idea of that. Another example could be my sister is coming for a visit and wants to do all kinds of activities with the kids that frees me up to begin something new. Like maybe I've been wanting to, a good Venus in Venus Jupiter in Taurus thing could be like remodeling your kitchen or something like that. But just having the time to sit down and think about how do you want to make changes to something, and the ability to do that because you have some support from somebody that's coming along right now or something like that, like a sister. I found a better job that allows me to move to a new location. I have friends that are desperately wanting to change locations to improve their life, which is something that I support because, they're my friends. So I want to see them doing really well. And the caveat, of course, if you're going to move, is you need to figure out what you're going to do in the new place that you're living, right? Well, so just in me trying to come up with a few examples for narrative number one, maybe my friend all of a sudden is out there looking for jobs, and he finds like a really good job that he likes. Well, therein lies the pathway that leads to a big change that is potentially really beneficial for them. So just another example, right? Or Venus, Jupiter, you really have to consider the fact that there is some kind of tangible monetary thing that comes along that's like maybe unexpected with that whole Uranian connection there too. But I've come into some unexpected money. I don't know, a bigger tax return, a savings on something. You find $100 in the parking lot. Don't get excited. Not everybody will have, all of a sudden money falling out of their pockets this week. But when Venus and Jupiter come together, some of us will definitely have that experience of like, wow, I just seem to have more wealth in some form or fashion right now. So I've come into some unexpected money, and I can now do, X, Y, and Z or something like that. Very simple. So that is narrative number one, is the fertility, creativity, good fortune that just leads to a change, a shift, or a break somewhere that is generally probably pretty positive. Number two is going to be successful completion and that is coming along with like a fresh, fertile um, space for new ideas, new plans, um, new tidings, anything that is kind of new. And when you get planets moving into Gemini, we're thinking, oh, this is an air sign. So we're moving out of the earth into the air. And maybe because these two planets are really close to this borderline between earth and air, this is speaking to, okay, something has come to a completion. I've been working really hard on something. I've been building um, this part of the project, and all of a sudden it's done. I stand back and I'm like, I got it done. I don't have to think about it. What I've been thinking about every day is there's space in my mind now to think about, okay, now I'm on to the next step. And so that could be where we see planets moving into Gemini, and it's like all of a sudden there is new space to begin a new, leg of the project, or begin a completely new thing in some way, but because something has come to kind of like a successful completion. And you get the symbolism of success from both Venus and Jupiter at times, where they just could simply indicate that, yeah, the effort that has been put forward has paid off, and you get the full moon coming through, bringing in that sort of culminative lunation phase symbolism. So this could be about, just simply having something come to a really successful completion that allows some kind of new space for like a new canvas, and ideas are coming out because of that. And then maybe they have very creative or fertile, abundance to them. Like you're able to really think with this freshness or clarity that is like really, abundantly pouring out of you, or something like that. That could be something like theme number 2, I think, could be along these lines here. Narrative number 3 is going to be amicable endings and union with new love. My example for this is that last week we had a very, very, very old cat, Henry. And Henry looks like Jupiter. He's this orange cat, and he has white, he has like these white waves through his fur, and he's got like light orange and dark orange. But he's kind of like this this thick-haired or long-haired cat that has this Jupiter-looking, body. He just looks like Jupiter to me, or at least that's what he reminds me of. And he was very, very old. He was blind. He was just suffering. So last week we had to put him down. Interestingly, and of course it was very sad. Interestingly, though, this happened right before the Sun and Jupiter perfected their conjunction to one another. And we talked about that last week. Some of the archetypal narratives that were coming through for Sun Jupiter conjoining in the sky last week. And how when the Sun and Jupiter come together, that's a synodic reset for the planet Jupiter, because it's an annual cycle that will one annual cycle of Jupiter is coming to an end as it relates to the solar year, and then one is beginning. So there's a whole theme around Jupiter things going through like a death and rebirth. So this is sort of what happened to me last week. Is we had to, very sadly, we had to say goodbye to a very old member of the family, and of course it was very sad, and it was. It drove me pretty deep into myself, because I'm like, it's not every day you see that kind of goodbye in your life. So of course it was really emotional and really sad, and it hit me really deep. And I'm just feeding this cat a little saucer of milk. This cat who is blind, can barely walk, just pretty much lays there all day, and you can't even pet him anymore, because when you do it seems like it hurts him. So but I wanted him to have a moment of existence, like his last few moments on Earth. at least until he moves into a different realm, into the spirit realm, where he's potentially experiencing new kinds of things. But his time here, I wanted it to be nice for him. I wanted him to have some pleasure. So I brought out a little saucer of milk, and he lifted up his little weak head, and he was lapping it up. And then he became like really spry, and he started grooming himself, and he was sitting up and all that kind of thing. But I'm looking at this cat, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, this cat just physically looks like the planet Jupiter, right? But it was time. I mean, honestly, I feel like this cat, we could have maybe had this moment a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, even, with how old Henry was. So, but it was just time. We didn't want him to suffer. So we had to say goodbye to Henry. And so in the sense of like an amicable endings, you could see, I think, with narrative number 3, because this is happening, this conjunction is happening at the end of a sign, you do get the symbolism of like, well, maybe this is tied in with some kind of ending, but an ending that is somehow, like, I don't want to say good in this case, because I don't know if that it's good that we had to put Henry down, but for him, it kind of was, right? Because he was suffering. So for him, it was actually like a positive end to his life, that his suffering would be over, and then something potentially comes next for him. His soul is liberated, right, from a body that is suffering. But amicable in the way of like, some people may walk away from a relationship, and maybe that is a positive thing for them. Things like that. Maybe you leave a job that you really hate, and that's a positive thing for you. But examples of things coming to an end that carry the weight of like, hey, it's actually kind of a good thing in some way. But then that also comes along with a kind of union for new love. Because again, planets are moving into Gemini. There's this full moon that is culminating, and this is so on the edge of things shifting into a new sign, this conjunction. So you kind of get that symbolism around, well, if I don't have Henry anymore, maybe after the sadness of that sort of fades away, maybe that leaves room for something new to be there, that is going to be a new love. Like maybe, we've had many cats over the years. We had 4. We had to put 2 down in the last 30 days, the older ones. We still have 2 cats, but I thought, well, I told Kate, I said, well, maybe we should get a puppy, try something different. That would be kind of a really good example of like, you can't replace Henry, but there's room now for something new that we could love. So that's theme number 3, is maybe some kind of positive or beneficial ending that also happens simultaneously with a union of something that is beginning, that you could love, that is, you have a passion for, that maybe is a blessing in some way. That could be theme number 3, or narrative number 3. Okay, and narrative number 4 is going to be, we're going to take a look at the shadow side of this, because I think it's important we always look at both the potential good things for an aspect or a transit, and the potential negative sides. The shadow side with this, of course, is pretty simple. It's just Jupiter and Venus. When those 2 planets are involved, you could just way overdo something indulgent. Your desire could just be more than is healthy. Too much of a good thing, just having too much sugar, having too much time with friends that neglect responsibilities, or having too much to drink on a Friday night and then waking up the next day and regretting it, or anything from little to big, just too much. You just when Venus and Jupiter are conjoining like this, especially in Venus's sign, especially at the end of the sign where there tends to be sometimes that remaining in the bounds of a malefic, you could very easily step into just too much of a good thing. So I'll just leave it as simply as I can with that. And I hope you guys have a great week. I would love to hear any examples you guys notice about this, just because it's such an interesting week of the year, astrologically speaking. So drop anything in the comment that you want to share. And I'll be back again with another Mantic Monday video next week. Until then, hope you guys do well, and I'll see you then. Bye for now.